Carroll O'Connor truly hated him more than anyone. Carroll O'Connor was born John Carroll O'Connor on August 2nd, 1924 in the Bronx, New York. He grew up in an Irish-American family that valued education, storytelling, and tradition. His early life was shaped by the economic struggles of the Great Depression, experiences that gave him a sharp awareness of class, hardship, and the different ways people view the world. Perspectives he later brought so vividly into his acting roles. After attending Wake Forest University and later the University of Montana, O'Connor's academic pursuits were briefly interrupted by his service in the United States Merchant Marine during World War II, a formative period that exposed him to resilience, discipline, and the complexities of human behavior. Following the war, O'Connor returned to academics, ultimately earning a degree in English. His love for literature, language, and human expression led him to pursue teaching before he discovered his true passion, acting. In the 1950s, he moved abroad to Ireland, where he studied at the University College Dublin. This time overseas gave him a rich appreciation for theatre and performance, and he began appearing in stage productions, sharpening his craft and preparing himself for the long career that awaited him. O'Connor eventually made his way back to the United States, where he worked tirelessly in the 1960s to establish himself in the entertainment industry. That he appeared in guest roles on several television series and in supporting parts in Hollywood films, including memorable performances in Cleopatra, 1963, What Did You Do in the War, Daddy, 1966, and Point Blank, 1967. These roles demonstrated his versatility as he could easily move between serious dramatic portrayals and lighter comedic characters. However, despite his talent, it wasn't until the 1970s that O'Connor landed the role that would define his career and elevate him into television history. That role, of course, was Archie Bunker in the groundbreaking sitcom All in the Family, 1971 to 1979. Archie Bunker was a working-class man from Queens, a character who embodied the prejudices, frustrations, and generational divides of American society at the time. While many actors might have shied away from playing a character with such controversial views, O'Connor embraced the challenge. He infused Archie with depth, complexity, and even moments of vulnerability, ensuring the character was never a one-dimensional caricature. Instead, O'Connor's performance turned Archie into a mirror, reflecting America's struggles with race, gender roles, politics, and cultural change. Viewers might have disagreed with Archie's outlook, but they recognized him, understood him, and often laughed with him as much as they laughed at him. All in the Family became a cultural phenomenon, breaking television. Barrisby openly addressing topics like racism, women's rights, the Vietnam War, and economic inequality, subjects that had rarely, if ever, been discussed on primetime television. O'Connor's work on the show earned him 4 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series, cementing his place among television's greatest performers. He reprised the role of Archie in the spin-off series Archie Bunker's Place 1979 to 1983, further extending his legacy and influence. But O'Connor was not defined solely by Archie Bunker. In the late 1980s and 1990s, he reinvented himself with another iconic role, this time as compassionate, thoughtful Chief Bill Gillespie in the television adaptation of In the Heat of the Night, 1988 to 1995. In stark contrast to Archie, Gillespie was a character who evolved with time, learning, growing, and adapting to the challenges of racial tension and crime in a small Mississippi town. O'Connor also worked as a producer and writer on the series, proving his skill extended beyond acting and into storytelling itself. His creative vision helped In the Heat of the Night become a long-running success that showcased his range as both a performer and a leader in the industry. In 1962, while Carroll O'Connor was in Rome working in the epic historical film Cleopatra, a production that was notorious for its extravagant sets, enormous budget overruns, and the pressure of filming alongside legends like Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, O'Connor and his wife Nancy Fields O'Connor made a profoundly personal and life-changing decision. They adopted a 6-year-old infant boy, naming him Hugh, a deeply symbolic choice that honored O'Connor's own brother who had tragically passed away just a year earlier. This act of adoption not only reflected the couple's compassion and desire to provide a loving home to a child in need, but also underscored Okuna's deep commitment to family, even amid the chaos and demands of an international film production. Their adoption marked a pivotal moment in Okuna's personal life, blending joy and remembrance as he brought into his home a child whose very name carried the memory of a loved one lost too soon. As Hugh grew up, he was exposed to the world of television and film through his father's career. At the age of 17, he took on a small but meaningful role on set of Archie Bunker's Place, working as a courier. This position, though seemingly minor, gave Hugh the chance to be actively involved in the environment that had shaped much of his father's life and career. For Okuna, who was by this time a television icon, it was a way to share both the excitement and responsibility of our professional set with his son, nurturing not just familial bonds, but also instilling a sense of work ethic and familiarity with the entertainment industry. Eventually, Okuna even created the character of Officer Lorna Jameson on In the Heat of the Night, specifically for Hugh, a gesture that went beyond mere career assistance. It was a heartfelt attempt to give his son a space to express himself creatively and professionally under the protective guidance of a father who understood the challenges and opportunities of the acting world. This act highlighted Okuna's enduring devotion as a parent and mentor, blending his personal and professional life in a rare and touching way. Tragically, on March 28, 1995, Okuna's son, Hugh, died by suicide after a long and painful struggle with drug addiction. This devastating loss profoundly affected Okuna, both as a father and as a public figure. The pain of losing a child is immeasurable, and for Okuna it became a catalyst for advocacy and public service. In the aftermath of Hugh's death, Okuna channeled his grief into meaningful action, appearing in public service announcements for the Partnership for a Drug-Free America. He used his platform, fame, and personal experience to educate the public about the dangers of drug abuse and the human cost of addiction, striving to prevent other families from enduring the heartbreak he had experienced. For the remainder of his life, Okuna dedicated himself to raising awareness about drug addiction, speaking openly about the struggles faced by his son, and advocating for support, understanding, and intervention for those suffering from substance abuse. This commitment demonstrated a remarkable resilience and a transformation of personal tragedy into a lifelong mission to help others, cementing Okuna's legacy not only as an iconic actor, but also as a devoted father and compassionate advocate. Carroll O'Connor, the legendary actor best known for his iconic role as Archie Bunker on All in the Family, was never one to mince words when it came to people he disliked. And his feelings toward Rob Reiner, who played his son Michael Meathead Stavik on the show, were no exception. In interviews and private conversations, Okuna did not shy away from expressing his contempt, once declaring bluntly, "I've never hated anyone as much as I hated Rob Reiner." This was not a passing annoyance or momentary clash of personalities. It was a profound and sustained animosity that Okuna admitted colored his experience on the show for years. Unlike typical tensions that might arise on a television set, their conflict was deeply personal, rooted in fundamental differences in temperament, ego, and approach. Okuna felt that Reiner's presence and attitude consistently undermined the collaborative spirit that was supposed to define the cast. According to Okuna, part of the problem was Reiner's approach to his role. He explained, "Rob always thought he was smarter than everyone else, that he had some moral high ground just because he played the liberal son." Okuna, who was intensely proud of his own craft and deeply invested in the authenticity of his performance, bristled at Reiner's self-assuredness. To Okuna, it wasn't just Reiner's acting choices. It was the aura of superiority he carried around on set, the implicit criticism he projected, and the way he challenged Okuna's own authority and interpretation of Archie Bunker. Okuna often described Reiner as arrogant and insufferable, insisting that his co-star's behavior went beyond normal artistic differences into territory that felt deliberately provocative and disrespectful. He saw Reiner as someone who not only questioned his professionalism, but also threatened the dynamics of the cast and crew, creating a tension that was impossible to ignore. Okuna's hatred was also fueled by the personal dimension of their relationship, or rather the lack thereof. Whereas some actors develop close bonds with their co-stars, sharing jokes, personal stories, and mutual support, Okuna found Reiner distant and condescending. He recalled, There was never a moment when I felt like Rob was my friend. He was always out to prove something, always competing for attention in ways I found exhausting. In essence, Okina felt isolated, constantly having to defend not just his character, but also his own professional worth against Reiner's perceived challenges. Their interactions on set, he said, were tense, awkward, and often downright hostile, with Reiner's behavior amplifying the frustration of long shooting days and creative disagreements. Yet, it was not just personal dislike that fueled Okina's animosity. There was also a philosophical clash. Archie Bunker was in many ways a complex figure whose nuances required Okina's careful interpretation that Reiner's approach to his own character, meanwhile, leaned heavily on satire and ideological assertion, which Okina felt simplified the father-son conflict into a constant moral lecture. He once remarked, "It wasn't about acting. It was about him trying to teach me Ale's son every day about liberal versus conservative, right versus wrong. I'm an actor, not a preacher." This ideological friction made their scenes particularly challenging, as Okina felt he had to constantly navigate Reiner's impulses while staying true to the essence of Archie. Despite the intensity of these feelings, Okina allowed them to erupt on camera. His professionalism meant that while he hated Reiner personally, he ensured that the tension added to the authenticity of the scenes rather than detracted from them. Paradoxically, Okina's animosity may have contributed to the dramatic chemistry that made Archie and Michael's interaction so compelling for audiences, though Okina himself would likely have dismissed this as a minor consolation. In private, however, he never softened his opinion, maintaining to the end of his life that his dislike for Reiner was unparalleled. "I've worked with many people I couldn't stand, but Rob topped them all, more than anyone ever did. In the end, Carol O'Connor's hatred for Rob Reiner was emblematic of a complex, often contradictory personality. A man who was passionate about his craft, fiercely protective of his artistic integrity, and unafraid to confront those he found insufferable. While the public saw the genial, sometimes cantankerous Archie Bunker, behind the scenes, Okina's relationship with Reiner revealed a deep personal friction that shaped much of his experience on All in the Family.